Welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John, and I am joined by my co host Mark. And we just concluded a very exciting end to the NFL regular season, as well as a not so exciting end to the college football season, period. Last night, Mark and I had the privilege of watching the Georgia Bulldogs just completely blow out start to finish TCU by 58 points. Didn't really seem like there was ever a point that they were going to come back or got momentum at any point. So it kind of made for a pretty boring national championship game. And, TCU beat Michigan. So I can't really bring up the merits of college football playoffs and what teams deserve to be there and what teams don't, because obviously TCU beat Michigan. But I do have to wonder if Ohio State or Michigan would have given Georgia just, a slightly bigger run for their money than TCU in that national championship game. What are your thoughts, Mark?
Well, first and foremost, got the new mic. As you can see, if you're watching, if you're listening, I'm sure I sound super smooth right now coming
Excellent.
into your ears. John pushed and pushed and pushed, and I was like, okay, screw it. I'm going to go get it. And ordered it. Came the same day. Perfect, just in time. And so we got it going. But yeah, I mean, obviously, the college football playoff was kind of a letdown. The first round was, I think, pretty exciting. This championship game. A lot of people kind of felt like this was going to happen in this game. It just felt like TC was outnumbered, outmatched from matchup standpoint. It didn't seem like they had much of a chance. Cinderella stories are awesome, but they don't happen twice typically. And I think them beating Michigan was their Cinderella moment. A lot of people are starting to say, well, Alabama should have been in, right? TC losing to Kansas State should have been the red flag. All of this stuff. Two things about that, right? Shame on the CFP, one, because the extended playoff that's going to take place in 2 years would solve all of this. It would solve all of it. It would give all of these mid-level teams like TCU a legitimate chance to fight and get to the national championship because they deserve the chance to fight for it, and they earn their right into that college playoff championship game. So that's the first thing. Extended playoffs, we won't be having this debate anymore. Okay.
Thank
Alabama
God.
would have been. And thank God, because it's all these years. Because I'm one of those people that believe not only would Alabama have beat TCU and Michigan, they would have competed and I think would have beat Georgia. The way that Alabama was starting to play, they got healthy. Will Anderson played. I mean, we saw them play in the bowl game against Kansas State. I understand that Georgia looked like a powerhouse team that no one was going to touch last night. But Alabama and their recruiting ability, their coaching ability, and their matchups. All right. And that's what college football is about. It's about matchups. They matched up well with Georgia. And I think it would have been a much, obviously, more competitive game. And I actually do believe Alabama had a legitimate chance of beating Georgia if they were to play again in the playoff. And we'll never know. And it's all going to just be, well, sounds good, right? It sounds really good to say that. That's why the extended playoff solves everything. That's why it doesn't even matter to have these debates anymore. Congrats to Georgia. They earned it. TCU probably, didn't belong in that matchup playing against them, but they earned the right by beating Michigan. Michigan fans and Ohio State fans have to be beating themselves up right now because this Georgia team was beatable and those two teams matched up much better than TCU, but neither team was able to get it done. Ohio State especially was a field goal away from a national championship.
And I'm tired of it too because of the fact that so I saw a tweet today that somebody said the college football playoffs ruined college football. And it's like, okay, I get what you're trying to say by that because of the fact that there is all of this abstract, vague system for how we decide the 4 teams that get there. But as you said, 2 years from now, that isn't a problem anymore, right? Because the college football playoffs with 12 teams rather than 4 is not going to ruin college football. It's going to make this entire thing so much better where teams aren't taking, right? I think Michigan lost because there was a month where they were not practicing. Sure. They were out of rhythm.
That's why Georgia looked shaky against Ohio State. It's the same thing.
Exactly.
It's the same exact. And I said this.
And it's not fair to those teams either, straight up.
So it's not fair.
It's a good way, I think, to give every team that deserves to be in that playoff a legitimate chance and also keep these teams hot through all of those weeks so that they're not going a month without practicing properly.
And it's not just college football and it's not just football. Like in any sport, if you take, you reach your peak. Michigan looked like arguably the number 1 seed in all of football, following that Ohio State and then the Big Ten championship back-to-back weeks. But you take a month off of practice or game mode, right? It's a mentality, but also the physical side of it. I don't care if it's basketball, soccer, hockey. If you take a month off and expect to just dive right back in and be playing the same way that you were playing before, you're not going to be the same. It takes time. And we saw Georgia, now that they had a week of, whoa, that was kind of a rough, shaky game against Ohio State. We need to get our stuff together. Kirby Smart clearly practiced. I mean, they were going live full tackling on Wednesday and Thursday of this past
And
week.
they should have.
And they did, right? Because they're like, okay, you're gonna do this, pretty championship week and change how we do things. We're gonna do what we do, and we're gonna come out, we're gonna kick your ass. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah. I mean,
But
look,
a lot of teams don't do that.
I took like 3-ish weeks off of like working, like in my standard, like, work mode, and came back and was sloppy. So sure as hell, an athlete that's, essentially a professional athlete or a damn near professional athlete, professional organization, they're not gonna look the same after a month, period.
Yeah. And it's a shame too, John, because all of the talk about, oh, well, Alabama should have been in, or, Ohio State or Michigan should have been the, different seeding so that they would have played, and all of that stuff, it overshines the fact that those kids, Georgia, earned a national championship and they beat everybody they had to beat. And it doesn't matter who this is who they got matched up to play. They beat a lot of good teams throughout the season as well. And it just kind of overshines the fact, like Stetson Bennett. Let's talk about Stetson Bennett.
I was gonna say, man, he had the game of his life. I mean, and I've talked some trash about him, whether or not he should be a Heisman candidate or something like that. That dude absolutely lit it up that entire game, and good for him. It's an awesome story. I know that he was kind of an underdog guy that was just a huge Georgia fan and really worked to get in the position that he's in. And I mean, dude, he was lights out that entire game. It's awesome.
John, can you do me a favor as I talk? Pull up. I sent you a tweet. There's a picture of him and Kirby Smart, like on his first.
I know which one you're talking
visit.
about. I'm on it.
Yep. I want to show this while I talk about this because Stetson Bennett's story hits home a little bit for me, but for a lot of people, right? I mean, grew up in Georgia, huge Georgia fan. Was probably told his whole life, no chance in hell that you're ever going to play there. Walks on there, right? Which I'm assuming most people, hey, this is him and Kirby Smart. I mean, look at him. He's like probably 17 or 18 years old.
Like,
and
jeans,
if you
like,
Kirby Smart's probably thinking to himself at that moment, like, whatever, this guy has big dreams. He wants to come and work hard. He'll be our scout quarterback. He'll be a practice squad guy. This is what he's going to be. Probably had a 4.0, bring the team GPA up. That's what he was looked at. Okay. I can almost guarantee you coaches at Georgia looked at him as just, he'll be a team guy. He'll be good to have around, good scout guy. He'll work his ass off. He'll take a beating and never complain. He goes there. They keep not good enough. There's 6 on the depth chart for, the first year and a half he's there. Says, coach, I'm going to go prove you wrong. Transfers to a JUCO, wins a championship at the JUCO, calls them back and says, listen, I just did this at the JUCO. I'm coming back, and I'm coming back to start. Comes back. They still tell him he's third string. And he says, no, coach, I'm going to prove to you I'm your starter and I can win games here. The opportunity finally comes to him. He wins. The rest is history. He wins 2 back-to-back national championships. Obviously had good team around him, but it's going to take a special quarterback to win a national championship. I don't care what team you have around him. For him to do what he did at Georgia is one of the best college football stories of all time. He's going to be a Georgia football legend. A lot of people are saying he's already the best Georgia Bulldog of all time. And I mean, he's made his mark on college football history as a walk-on to have to transfer out, come back, do what he did. I mean, people don't realize how many times he was told no and you're not good enough. And all they see is, oh, yeah, he was kind of an underdog. No, like he was told by the coaches he was playing for, you will never play here, ever. And he said, okay, I'm going to go prove you wrong. Transfers to a JUCO, which sucks, by the way. Junior college, that's a hard path, right? And that's a risky path. Balls out, wins a championship, goes back, and the rest is history. I mean, that's such an incredible story. I'm glad that people are starting to finally give him credit. And people are still doubting him, John. They're talking, well, is he an NFL guy? Okay, we're really going to have this conversation. Of course, the guy deserves a chance in the NFL. People are like, oh, he's too small. He's not athletic enough. They do just won back-to-back national championships at the best team in college football and beat out all kinds of 5-star guys to do it. Like, he's definitely deserving.
And it's a bummer, too, because, like, I think narratives on quarterbacks, right? Like once they're set, they're set. I mean, look how tough it's been for Tua to shake his narrative. And then, obviously Trevor Lawrence has had an incredible year this year, and we'll get to that. But like you look at guys like Trevor Lawrence, who it's like, ever since the beginning at Clemson, he's the guy, right?
And they expect him the next Peyton Manning, all this stuff. And once that script gets written for you, and you're not writing it, it's other people that write the story for you and say, this is what he's going to be. It's so awesome to see him take the script, rip it up, throw it away, and say, I'm writing my own story. I don't care what people say. And I guarantee you, Stetson Bennett he's going to slip in the draft if he even gets drafted. And that's a damn shame, but he's going to go to some team and he'll probably be a role player quarterback. I could see him having a similar, I don't know if the same thing's going to happen because a lot happen opportunity wise, but like Brock Purdy, right? Like
Yeah.
nobody thought he was going to come in and do anything.
Well,
And
that's where
I
I
could
see him
see
as
Stetson
like,
Bennett. Yeah,
second string guy that when he gets the opportunity, he gets the freaking job done, right? And
right.
like that's
That's
probably
what
the
he's
type of
gonna.
player he is. So, yeah, no, super cool story, and I think that's like probably the biggest positive takeaway from that snoozer
Yeah,
of a national championship game.
yeah. And it was
Um,
cool seeing him and Max Duggan playing it, because those are the two guys I think that have the best stories in college football, individual stories.
right.
Probably the two biggest underdogs, that we were able to follow in the top of college football, and for them to find, obviously it sucks it wasn't a much of a game. Kind of crazy, John. That was the biggest blowout win in the bowl game era, and it was the championship game. The
That's
most
crazy.
points in the bowl game era. That was the biggest blowout in bowl game era. And it
Which
was a
what I mean,
championship game.
the concept of bowl games are 80 plus years old, like somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
I'm not exactly sure how long it is, but think about how many bad matchups we've seen before where like an Alabama's playing like a Tulane or, and you would think that there would be somewhere along the lines of a bigger blowout.
1902. So it was
Right.
the
So
first
since
bowl game.
1902, and that was the
So
biggest blowout
it's
we've seen. The
125
largest
years.
winning margin.
That's nuts. That's absolutely crazy. I love that. Yeah, and I'm gonna miss college football. Obviously, it's always kind of bittersweet because it's like this week is like the first signal. It's like, oh man, like all the fun of the season's gonna start to wind down, and there's gonna be a lot of exciting things coming here, but it's limited, it's fleeting.
Yeah.
So with that, I guess we'll kind of transition to the NFL and kind of talk about what we witnessed over the past couple of days with all of these matchups here. Some of them matter more than others, obviously. But there was also some crazy endings to some teams that were in the playoff hunt too. So you kind of get a mixed bag of like some throwaway games, but also some ones that really mattered. First throwaway game, Chiefs Raiders. I'd say the biggest, most interesting part about this game was Andy Reid being whatever you want to call him, right? An evil scientist, just having literally grown men, professional athletes, multimillionaires doing ring around the rosy, which, like Harbaugh's like little like train formation was silly. This was on an entirely different level.
They're
And
just toying with teams, man.
like,
They're just
what are
toying
you
with
like? This
defenses.
is the NFL, man.
Dude, in all seriousness, that's really hard to defend, like
It
from a
is.
coaching perspective, like because you don't even defensively, you're always on the reaction, right? You're reacting to what the offense does. So much of what you call and how you play defensively matters on how the offense lines up in motions. And when they're doing something like no one's ever done before, pre-snap, you're just standing there like, okay, well, what's the call? And then they just all of a
Right.
sudden break and they're lined up, and then there's a motion, and at that point you're just guessing, and that's exactly what
Yeah,
happened. They
and
were
it
out
was
of
it was a
position.
huge play off of it that I think got called back from a flag, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it would have been a touchdown otherwise. So it's like,
Yeah, and then you saw players talking about it after. I saw one player just talk about how much he hates Andy Reid and the Chiefs because of stuff like that. He's like, dude, it's just like demoralizing. You're getting beat, and they do something like that, and it's just like, really, like we're just gonna. That's how we're gonna do this.
yeah.
But
And honestly, like, why wouldn't you save something like that for the playoffs if you actually think it's
well,
effective? Because they're already
I'm
winning.
I'm sure Andy Reid. Here's what Andy Reid's thought process is. Yeah, when they called it, it was already a blowout. The game was done, and what he probably was doing was, I'm going to show this so that next week teams have to. Well, they
People
have
are
a bye,
planning for
but
some
yeah, they have to.
stupid,
You have to,
yeah,
because as a defensive coordinator, you have to now prepare for that because
right.
they've shown it, and I'm sure they'll have another play off of it that looks the same, and they'll still score. But that's why he did it. Is to just like, haha,
Yeah.
here's another thing
I
you have to study for.
I saw a tweet that somebody put out where it's like, I'm fully convinced that Andy Reid just like drops acid and rewrites the entire Kansas City playbook every single week. And it's just
Yeah.
like, all right, guys, here's what we're running this week.
And there's times where he gets cute with stuff like this and it doesn't work
Yeah.
because
But
and he's playing with like if he does that in a moment where is really important. I mean, if it works, people are like, "Holy cow, it was so cool." If it doesn't work, people are like, "Dude, just like you needed like 3 yards for a first down." Just like, you know what I mean? Just have your stud $500 million quarterback get you the first down,
yeah.
So obviously, but the Chiefs win this and they clinch the 1 seed. There's going to be a lot of dispute over that, obviously, with what happened with the Bengals and the Bills game. There's going to be a lot of issues, right? If the Bills were to win that game that was canceled, they would have had the 1 seed. So there's obviously, and obviously Cincinnati would have had a chance as well if they would have beat the Bills. So there's obviously going to be a lot of issues. We saw Joe Mixon with the coin flip celebration, one of the best of all time, in my opinion, with given the circumstances. He'll accept that fine, I'm sure, gladly. But that was awesome to see. But Chiefs get it done. They're the 1 seed in AFC, and the playoffs go through Arrowhead again.
Yep. Nothing new on the AFC side of things, I guess. And yeah, it's I'm super pumped because I think the three teams you kind of mentioned in that spiel there is, what it's all going to boil down to is the Chiefs and the Bengals and the Bills. So we'll see what happens there. Really stoked about it. But a team that, for the first time in a long time has a shot now are the Jacksonville Jaguars, going and beating Mike Vrabel, and like, the Titans just seem to be completely imploding on themselves. Let's not forget that this team won the AFC last year and were knocked out in the first round. But this team just doesn't look the same. And now, you get rid of your GM, and you're probably going to have to get a new quarterback, and you just got rid of your offensive coordinator. I don't know how happy ownership is with Vrabel himself, but they're sticking with him because he's kind of like a player's guy and has had some success. I mean, really interesting situation over there. Most Titan fans, from what I can tell, seem relieved. I think this was kind of long overdue in their perspective. And I can't disagree with that, trading away AJ Brown and, all of the other things that happened this offseason. And then how unproductive the offense has been. But yeah, man, I mean, pretty cool story for the Jaguars. They're focusing on the negatives with the Titans, but you got to give respect to Peterson and his Jaguars team in the first year making it to the playoffs. That's really exciting stuff. So, what are
I
your
mean,
thoughts on that one?
they've essentially played already, and a team like the Jags are dangerous because they've essentially been playing playoff games for the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Right.
They lose one of the last 5 or 6, they are not in the playoffs. And the crazy thing is they have
Right.
a home game, right? So you got to give them credit. What an amazing turnaround that is, not only with Trevor Lawrence, but as a team. And what he's able to do. I don't know if you saw, but Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Engram all have career high in catches this season. So what he was able
That's
to do with
amazing.
bringing those guys in, and a lot of people were questioning, well, why are you paying these guys all this money? He clearly saw a system that would work with those guys. He saw a plan for those guys with Trevor Lawrence, and the production has been off the charts. Career highs for all those guys, which is really hard to do. They're on the same team, so
Right.
it's awesome to see that. Obviously, like you said, the Titans kind of a letdown this year. Seems like they're going to have to be in a little rebuild process. They're definitely one of the teams that's going to be looking for a quarterback. How bad does Malik Willis have to be, John, for them not even to give him a chance in these games? I mean, he must be horrible. He must be
Yeah.
just doing
Well,
terrible
I
in
mean,
practice.
we watched him get a start, however many weeks ago it was, and he didn't complete a pass, right? And look, I think, and this is the problem, right? There were people projecting that the Lions were going to take Malik last
Yeah,
year,
and I was saying,
right?
please don't.
Please don't, right? Same here. And he obviously has a lot of amazing physical attributes. He has he has a lot of speed, he has a cannon of an arm. But from what I have seen from him, it is not clear to me that he has gotten up to the decision-making speed of being an NFL player. And when you're a freak athlete like that, your first impulse is to just use your legs whenever the situation gets hairy. And especially with a coach like Vrabel, that is going to drive him insane, right? Because they win games with guys like Tannehill because he's the opposite of that. Tannehill is not, the craziest athlete who's super fast and, can do crazy stuff out of the pocket. He is pretty purely a pocket passer, system guy that, just is good at reading the defense and executing. And if Malik can't develop enough to learn how to do that, his NFL hopes are definitely in trouble, especially with the Titans. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
I view that situation. And whatever his name is, Dobbs,
Josh
is that it?
Dobbs.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs. I mean, he has experience, right? So it's not that, and the Titans were in the playoff hunt, obviously. So I think there's reason to try to get a true starter over Malik in a situation like that. So I'm not saying that it's all negative with him, but just based off of what I've seen this season, I think that he has, a lot of work to do as far as like, getting his mindset up to NFL speed and making sure he's making smart decisions and not deciding to use his legs too quickly or something like that. So
Yeah, it just seemed, it seemed crazy that we were watching a game that meant that much, right? It was a win to get in, and you have Dobbs as your starting quarterback that week. It sucks, and the fact that it was competitive for most of the game as well is impressive enough. As you want to point to Vrabel's ability to get a team ready. He was clearly outmatched personnel wise, and the fact that this was a game, I think you have to give him some credit. But sucks to be a Titans fan after what they did last year, and then to come in
one
and
one thing I have to mention too, did you see the national anthem?
I did not.
I got to pull up a picture of this right now. The most Florida man I have ever seen in my entire life played the national anthem on an American flag painted guitar. It is absolutely hilarious.
Florida's a different world, man. I mean, I don't know if it's even a part of the United States. It's like its own little
Dude, you're going to
swamp.
laugh your ass off once you see this.
All right. Yeah, that's pretty legit, though. I'm not going to lie.
It's the most Florida thing I have ever
See,
seen
John, why
in
not?
my
Now, why
entire
don't you're
life.
a guitar guy? Why don't you own a guitar like that? Do you not love America?
I mean, I do. I would say that anything that just isn't either a wood finish or a solid color finish is a little corny inherently. But this is a vibe. It's
Dude,
Florida
that's
vibes
a
for sure.
statement. Look at all the flags in the background,
I know
right? I mean, that's America
that
right
that
there.
dude is like probably like set his guitar down after he was done playing and went and like wrestled an alligator or something. Like that's what I would
Also,
do in my room.
also have to respect how big that dude's forehead is with the hairline
Matt,
going on.
well, yeah, and I don't know if it is actually a big forehead or if he's just rocking long hair with a very
Very
horribly
slick back.
receding, yeah, very
Yeah.
receding hairline to say the least.
Oh yeah, but he doesn't care. He's got all that hair in the back. It don't matter what's in the front for him.
Right, right, and he's got the whole like Fu Manchu type facial hair going on. So yeah, I mean he came ready to play. That's for sure. I don't know if the Titans came ready to play, but he came ready
He
to play.
might. They might have to have him do that every single week because clearly it worked.
Right,
They're going to
right.
need that against the Chargers because that's a tough first round matchup.
It is a tough first round matchup, and I will get to that because I have some choice words about the Chargers' decision making this past week. But we will get there when the time comes. So look, I'm not going to lie. Tampa being in the playoffs makes me think that we need to rearrange how we do the whole division winning thing. This team is a losing record was in the playoffs, and that just pisses me off when you take a look at the Lions, who I honestly think would clobber Tampa right now.
Yeah.
I think if they played each other, I think the Lions would win by 30 points, and that is not an exaggeration. I mean, they beat Jacksonville by 30 points.
You know what's so funny, John, is in every way you're right, but Tampa will win this playoff game. That's
I
the
don't disagree
crazy
with you.
part. Like they shouldn't be in. They did not deserve. They don't deserve. They didn't earn it. And you're right. The Lions would clobber them. And there's probably a few other NFC teams you can mention that would probably give them a better, a run for their money. Crazy thing is, we're going to watch them win one, maybe two playoff games. And I can see
I
Tom
think for
Brady.
sure one. I
Here's the
mean,
thing: if they get to the NFC Championship game, or they're able to even sniff it, if you have Tom Brady and championship in the same sentence, I would not put it past them.
I know.
And the defense is pretty good once healthy, and they clearly rested some guys in this game. So I wouldn't look at this loss as anything that truly matters. But yeah, you're right. They have a losing record, and they were bad all year. No running game. Their defense was shaky because they were in and out of injuries. But they're healthy right now on defense. It sounds like they got Tristan Wirfs back. Huge addition to the offensive line.
Mike
And if they
Evans
can
is playing the
establish
hottest he's played all
right,
season.
if they can
Period.
establish a little bit of a running game, just a little bit, they will beat Dallas, and I could see them making a run. And that
I do
pisses
not
me off.
disagree with you. It makes me upset, but I don't disagree with you. So that's that. Bills Pats ended up being a pretty entertaining game, which I know the Pats were kind of playing to keep their playoffs hopes alive. But man, like it just first of all, the kick returns and all that stuff, very exciting. But just Josh Allen, man, like incredible. And I know like we got to be used to it at this point after 3 seasons straight of this dude just being like an absolute superhero. But like some of the passes that he was making this game, I mean, he is so locked in and probably the most playoff ready he's ever been in his entire life. So
Dude,
I'm stoked.
listen, the first thing I think that it was just amazing, and there's just sometimes things happen in sports that mean so much more. And Josh Allen and their, in their post game said it was a spiritual moment. Like that's the only way he could put it. Everything that those guys went through, the Buffalo as a team, Buffalo as a city, the coaches, the NFL, right? Players as a whole. And the first thing that happens when they start playing again with DeMar Hamlin, watching from his hospital bed is a opening kickoff return for a touchdown. And then it happens again later in the game. I mean, you just can't
Against the
even, again,
freaking
you can't,
Patriots. Against the Patriots.
again,
Like
dude, you can't write that. You can't write that script. That's you don't even. It's better than stuff you see in movies that are make believe, right? Like it is just honestly, like Josh said, a spiritual moment. It's bigger than football. You just was like an out of body experience and moment, and you felt it. People watching from home felt that kind of emotion. Imagine being at the game. Imagine being on that team, or even if you're on the Patriots. Like you just have to be like, you know what? I mean, that's just bigger than us. That's bigger than anything we can comprehend. Is something like that happening?
I couldn't
And
agree with you enough, Mark. Like truly, it's like this sport is so special for
that's
so
why
many
we
ways. And
love it,
I'm,
dude.
I'm not to
That's
say that like moments this magical can't happen in other sports because they can and they have before. But like you said, a movie could not write a script better than what transpired over the past week. I mean, like, and the way that the football community came together and the way that everybody was in sync, kind of just knowing
yeah,
that like those kickoff returns were special.
yeah.
Like
I mean,
there was something greater than football that was causing that to happen. It's
and then
awesome.
seeing obviously super cool seeing DeMar Hamlin tweeting during the game and his support, from recovery and just trying to get better. Which is just we keep hearing better and better news about him, which is just awesome and a miracle in itself. It's just so cool, man. And I tell you, Bills are a team of destiny. They have been all year before this happened. But when you add something like this to a team that was already playing with such intent to win it all, I just don't know how the Bills don't do it. That's all I'm going to say. I just don't know how the Bills don't pull this off and make their run and hold that trophy and dedicate it. I just don't know. I don't know how I don't
But
see it not happening.
football
I'm
is a
sorry.
game of momentum, and I can't imagine you having any better momentum than watching your brother go down like that and making it and thinking, all right, this is all for him. So
Purpose, John, purpose and momentum are the two things that can override any amount of talent, any amount of scheme, any amount of anything in football because it is such a physical, complex sport, emotionally and physically, right?
yeah.
Um, Purpose and momentum. And they have all of the purpose in the world now to go and make their run. They have the entire city behind them, the entire fan base behind them. Probably going to have plenty of snowballs ready to go. And, that's going to be tough for anybody to beat Buffalo.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Vikings, Bears, right? I think Vikings are mostly resting their guys. Not
And
really a
so are the
real game
Bears, it
there.
seemed like.
It seemed,
Quick
yeah, so are the
question,
Bears.
John. Because this game, there's not much to talk about. Vikings get it done, whatever. Um, the Bears get the number one pick. I'm starting to hear that they might be considering taking a quarterback if it lines up where they must take him, which means
I
Fields would be on the trading block.
I personally think it's moronic. Like I really do.
I mean, you
Um,
get a number one overall pick, and the guy that there's only so many Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Mahomes type guys that are
yeah,
going to
but
be
you're
your
trying
guy
to
for
tell
20
me that
years.
Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are for sure those guys? For sure. Absolute certainty.
I'm not gonna say for sure yet on Bryce Young, but Bryce Young is worth looking at in that way. I think
I
Bryce Young has a chance of being one of those guys. And I have to I'm gonna look at him more and watch film on him and see how he does in the combine and see how he does in his pro day and stuff like this and see what other teams are starting to say. But what I'm hearing early on, as teams have started to evaluate him, that he might be that good where you have to get rid of Fields, which is
he
fine. You could probably get a decent amount for Fields.
Yeah, he's a great player. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely think he's a great player. But I also think that you quarterback is such a dicey position, and you seem like you have a guy that hasn't figured it out, and he has no offensive line, no receivers, no running back. Really. Like that would be a ballsy move from Chicago. I would be pretty shocked to see it. I don't disagree with you that there's potential for a quarterback there, but man, that would be wild to say
Because
the
here's what I'm
least.
thinking, John. Right, you have Justin Fields. He's going to have some nice trade value. It resets that having to pay Justin Fields, thing, which has become a problem for a lot of NFL teams, having to pay guys that maybe they shouldn't have to pay. Okay, look at Kyler Murray. Look what might happen with Lamar, um, Aaron Rodgers, even, right? They just had to pay him, and I don't know if that was the right move or not in hindsight, but it saves you from having to deal with that. You get a lot of value for Justin Fields. I think he had a really productive year. And the way he plays, I don't know how durable he is for a long-term career. You get a guy like Bryce Young in, and you probably can get some decent value back. As a GM, I would consider it, and I would genuinely study Bryce Young. And if we think that he's our guy, I would pull the trigger on him and take him number one, trade Justin Fields, get linemen, get picks, and
Yeah.
just rebuild the whole thing.
And I don't want to get too heavy into this because there's a lot to talk about still, but skipping over Ravens Bengals quickly, right? Lovie Smith, knowing he was about to get fired, decides to take the Texans' first round pick away from them, or first overall pick, rather,
He was
away
doing it
from
for
them
his old stomping grounds for Chicago. It's all
for
part of the
Chicago.
story. He was
And
doing it for them.
And now, if you've heard, the Colts said they are going to do whatever they need to do in order to trade up to go get themselves a franchise quarterback because they're done with this carousel thing that they've been doing. I've seen multiple reports from that.
Unfortunately, I think the only legitimate franchise quarterback is Bryce Young in this draft. So
right. So that means they would try to negotiate a trade with Chicago, potentially knowing that they have that leverage. So great. And then to go into the in-between game here, like the Ravens might not sign Lamar, and I could totally see Fields landing in Baltimore.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's what a lot of people are starting to say. I think this offseason is going to be nuts.
It might be just as crazy as last offseason.
Yeah, there's going to
which
be a
was the
lot of
craziest
crazy
offseason
things
I've
that
ever
happen.
seen.
This draft, all I'm hearing as a Lions person though is there's a decent chance that we end up getting Jalen Carter or Will Anderson.
Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. I'm happy with either one.
I would prefer Will Anderson, which is what it's sounding like is more likely if he, to drop to us. But either one of those guys, man, and we are going to be a problem.
And then there's that corner from Penn State too that we'll probably be able to nab with the 18th pick or whatever we have too.
Yeah, I listen, there's a lot of we can
Porter
get into draft talk as the offseason happens, but there's a lot to look forward to, and we're going to get into that in future episodes for sure.
Definitely. The only thing I want to touch on, since we kind of like coupled these three games together, is the Bengals Ravens are immediately going into a rematch with one another, and we don't know if Lamar is going to actually play for it. I would hope that he does, but with this entire contract situation looming overhead, who knows? Really interesting situation there, and crazy to not only play a team 3 times in the same season, but then also have to literally play them back-to-back weeks. That's pretty rare in the NFL, and man, I'm excited to see what happens with that because Harbaugh is not a dumb coach. He's about as good as they get, which means the Bengals are going to have a few tricks up their sleeve in order to keep that advantage, because I think personnel wise they're the better team, but also the Ravens have a great defense and they can make things happen with a not so talented offense. So
yeah, it's going to come down to, obviously, even if Lamar plays, the rust, right? He has not played in several weeks, and that's really hard to jump into an intense playoff game and, have any sort of momentum or consistency, right? The timing's going to be off. His body's not going to be prepared to or used to being playing full on tackle football.
yeah.
But you never know if he plays and Baltimore is able to run the ball, control clock, play good defense. You never know what's going to happen. It's going to be a good game for sure. I think a better game than the one you saw on Sunday.
Yeah, I would definitely not want to be asleep at the wheel if I was Cincinnati. I think getting complacent or getting overconfident in that sense would be a very bad move because Harbaugh is a damn good coach. So moving on to the team that hasn't scored a touchdown in 3 games. Man, again, there's been a lot of Campbell-Saleh comparisons over the past 2 seasons. And look at the December football that the Detroit Lions played versus the December football that the New York Jets played. that's tough to look at. And their quarterback situation's rough. I don't think Zach Wilson says he plans on competing and giving whoever he's competing against hell, his words. And I just think he's a very him guy and not a locker room guy, and that's going to cause problem and friction within what's an otherwise a really good offense that's clicking in a lot of ways. And then the Dolphins, man, I'm happy they were able to get it done, and that McDaniel was able to squeeze by and make this happen, because I think he could very potentially be in the hot seat if he didn't, because the Dolphins owner does not seem patient currently. So I'm happy that they're getting a chance, and hopefully can make something happen. But their matchup's looking pretty tough too.
It's tough, yeah, tough matchup. It's so tough to judge Salah for, I mean, they didn't score a touchdown in a month, and they were still in most of the games they played in that.
Their defense is disgusting. It is
yeah,
good.
They're a quarterback away, so it's really hard to judge him as a coach and compare him to Campbell and all that stuff. I mean, if Jared Goff was on the Jets, I mean, they would be a Super Bowl contender. So it's tough and unfair.
Is this where Derek Carr goes?
There's a chance. I mean, there's a chance. I've seen Lamar Jackson posts, of him going to New York. I could see them trying to draft a guy. But the thing with Zach Wilson is it's tough, because once you lose a locker room, it's really hard to get that back, man. He doesn't seem like a guy that they want to play for. And obviously it's just us kind of thinking and saying things that we think from what we've seen. But if he truly has lost the locker room and lost respect from his teammates, it's really hard to get that back. Winning solves everything, but I don't know. I don't know if he can go in there and win them games.
And then the Jets were winning, like they were winning.
I know
it's
crazy.
Yeah.
But Miami getting in, great. I don't think it's going to last very long. I don't know if Tua's going to play or not. I don't think it really matters. It's just a whole different monster playing against Buffalo in the playoffs in Buffalo, and obviously with everything they have, to play for. So good luck to them. Glad they got in. Good for McDaniel in his first year, but
they played 2 very good games against Buffalo in the regular season, one of which they won. So nothing's impossible, but I would say that the odds are very much not in their favor and very much in Buffalo's favor. All the momentum's there for Buffalo to honestly, like, this is the kind of matchup that you go in thinking that Miami has a chance, and then Buffalo puts up 40 on them like it's nothing, right? That's kind of what happened with that Patriots game, where it's like, oh, like, it's a Belichick team. Like, they're going to give Buffalo a run for their money. And then Buffalo proceeds to have a perfect game, scoring a touchdown on every single drive against, what's generally heralded as one of the most consistent, rock solid defenses in the NFL. So that's what I think we're working up towards for this matchup here. I don't know if you have the same opinion on that, but that's kind of the vibe that I get.
Yeah, that is definitely the vibe that I have going on. And I just had a total sidetracked thought as you were saying that, which will happen to me. And we'll get into it as we get into the Packers thing towards the end. But a little introduction to it. We talked about quarterbacks going to other teams. I could see Aaron Rodgers going to the Raiders.
Interesting. So that he can get his boy Devontae back?
Yeah. So I don't know what made me think of it. I was the way you were talking about Tua, and something just clicked with me. We'll get into that.
He didn't go to the Pat McAfee show for Aaron Rodgers Tuesday today because he apparently is spending the next 3 days in conversations with that organization on what he plans to do next. Pretty bizarre. I don't know if I've ever.
I mean, he's a weird guy, man.
He is.
He's a weird guy. I'll say this: they do love him in Green Bay. I will say that. I was in Green Bay this weekend, and we'll have all kinds of stories to talk when we get to this last game on here. But yeah, they love him there, and he's done a lot there, and I think he does love Green Bay and the people there, and I think he's had a great career there. It might be it,
Yeah.
And if it is, I don't think he's done playing. I think he's competitive enough and feels like he still has some of the tank. But
yeah, going out without a playoff berth at the very least, I think.
Yeah, I feel like he keeps saying, I could walk away from this, go do Jeopardy, go do whatever I want to do. And he could. I just don't think he will. I think that there's too much competitive nature in him, too much of an ego, an underdog mentality, screw you, I'm going to go prove everybody wrong in him, which is part of what's made him so great. and I could see him similar to Brady, just refusing to give it up and going and trying to send that last message before hanging him up.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you whatsoever. I mean, especially again, like you didn't make the playoffs this year. That's got to leave such a bad taste in his mouth. Um, Panthers Saints. I have nothing to talk about for this game personally. I mean,
chalk it up as a good, hey, learning season. It sounds like they're going to keep their coach, the Saints.
Yeah, Dennis Allen sticking around. Look, if Dennis Allen is a quarterback that I don't loathe, maybe this ends up working out. But I think I had a lot of qualms about, how he handled the starting quarterback situation. And I just think the offense was way too unproductive for the defense generally to overcome. Because second half of the season, Saints defense was playing how Saints defense is supposed to play, but the offense just never got it going. And I don't know how you don't get it going with Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave. I know Jarvis Landry was hurt. I know Michael Thomas was hurt, but still, there's enough weapons there.
John, do you think in some weird universe, maybe they have the wrong ginger playing quarterback from TCU for them? Maybe they drafted a guy named Max Duggan?
I could see that happening. Keep in mind the Saints don't have a ton of draft capital to work with too. They swap with the Eagles. So we'll see what goes on there.
Because Duggan will slip. I mean, he will be there in the later rounds.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens there.
Maybe they give another ginger a try from TCU. I mean, what are the odds that you go 0 for 2 on that?
That's true, right? And gingers are pretty
ginger
rare
math.
to come across.
It's ginger math.
For sure.
All
right. The only thing that I have to say about the Steelers-Browns game is the Steelers almost ripping Deshaun Watson's head off with that face mask that didn't end up getting called. And Mike Tomlin somehow, by the grace of God, ended with yet another winning season, and the streak is still alive, and that's crazy. So that's really all to take. Look, the fact the Steelers finished with a winning record, insane. Actually insane. This team
it is, and it's
lacked so much offensively and was banged up like crazy defensively, and they still put together a winning season.
John, real quick, I'm going to go on a tangent to support what you just said. And these are my, as I look at this and I've thought about this, there's a lot of coach of the year guys that truly you can make an argument. I wouldn't even disagree with you. There's so many of them, right? Dan Campbell in Detroit and what they were able to do. I think that Pete Carroll in Seattle deserves to be in that conversation. Sirianni, obviously, in Philly, what they were able to do. Tomlin for Pittsburgh, which they have a winning season. Peterson, the Jags, turning around. Dabble in the Giants, doing what they did, what they have. And then obviously, and this is one that's weird, and people are like, what do you mean? They're the top second seed in the NFC. Kyle Shanahan. He's won 9 straight games, but what he's done with the quarterback situation there and having to deal with that, what other coach in the league wins 9 straight games with that happening? I mean, if Mahomes got hurt, do you think Andy Reid would win 9 straight games?
Yeah, and again,
or Josh Allen or any of those guys?
I've said this so many times, right? We got the receipts because we do a podcast every week. Second half of the season, 49ers, year over year under Shanahan, are just disgusting. They're ridiculous. I don't know what he does to get the offense so in sync and the defense so rock solid and consistent, but I've seen it happen basically 4 years in a row now, where this team, it doesn't matter what happens in the first half of the season. They'll be flirting with 500, give or take a couple games. And then after Thanksgiving, this team is just lights out. It is awesome. He is an amazing coach. He's a guy that doesn't get talked about enough because
I mean, and he deserves to be in that conversation. I mean, seriously, you rattle off 9 straight with your third string rookie, Mr. Relevant quarterback. That's insanely impressive, man. And that deserves to be in that conversation.
I agree. And he's a guy that nobody's talking about. And it's almost like it's an expectation, right? That's just what the 49ers do is they work with what they got and they rattle off wins in December. Okay, just because that's the standard there, that doesn't mean that it makes it any less impressive.
It's incredible. So, sorry for my tangent.
I appreciate it because I do think the 49ers deserve a shout out there.
Yeah.
Eagles Giants. I don't think this game mattered to either team. If I'm
the Eagles had to win to get the Eagles had to win.
That's right. But the Giants seeding didn't change, and they did. The Giants did get the 1 seed.
Right.
My bad.
And they did it right. A little slippery for a minute there, for the Eagles. Right. A little bit of oh no, are the 49ers going to take the one spot. But
Right.
Philly gets their bye, which is
It was
big because
good.
Jalen Hurts is still trying to get 100%.
Right. And it was great for him, I think, to get his feet under him a little bit in
Yeah.
this game, too. I think the fact
Yeah.
that he actually got some, because, man, doing that bye week and then having your first game back being, a very
Exactly.
crazy, legit playoff game,
You do
like,
not
that's
want to have
tough.
that much time off, with your
No.
starting, especially in that offense and what they ask him to do.
Yeah.
Totally a lot of timing, a lot of chemistry, very important. So him getting his feet wet, getting another week now to get physically ready,
Yep.
is big for them. Was an absolute must, honestly, to get that
Yep.
bye week for them.
In reference to the Tampa Bay situation, what are the Dallas Cowboys doing?
This is what they do. They're doing what they do.
Like, Dak Prescott
That's what they do.
sucks. Dak Prescott is horrible. He didn't play a full season. What did he do? I think 9 games, 10 games, something like that.
He missed. I think he missed 5 games. 4 or 5 games
5.
that he missed.
Okay, so whatever that is, then he played
And
12
Cooper Rush
games.
went 4-1 in those games.
Sure, and what I'm getting at though is, guess who leads the league in not only interceptions but then also interception to pass attempt ratio? Dak Prescott, with several less games started than a lot of other people that could be, throwing interceptions this season. It's
Yeah, it's not a good
embarrassing.
look. It's not a good look.
Embarrassing. And again, this Cowboys defense is really good. They are very, very good. But this offense put up 6 points against a not good Commanders team that was
The weird thing, John, is that at times the Cowboys have looked phenomenally good on offense.
That's what they do. That's what they do.
And there's been games where Dak looks back. They're just falling apart at the time that they always fall apart going into the playoffs.
They
they're going
blow
into
out bad teams in the regular season. That's what they do.
They're going into a tough game, man. I mean, Tampa's defense is gonna be back to what we saw like that Super Bowl run. Like they have most of those guys still on the roster, and they're
let's
getting
not
healthy.
forget too that Tampa beat Dallas in week 1 too.
Yeah,
at Dallas, if I'm remembering correctly.
And let's not forget that Dak Prescott against a good defense against Tom Brady in the playoffs.
I don't trust it.
History repeats itself, and it just screams.
Does McCarthy get fired if they lose this?
Yes. I think Jerry Jones has already he didn't answer directly, but they said, "Are you going to fire McCarthy if he doesn't win this game?" And he basically said, "This is not the only thing that I evaluate McCarthy on is this game. I evaluate him in a greater whole, but nothing's off the table." Essentially, is what he said. So basically, in a roundabout way, and in the nicest way possible, yes. Like, yes, you're fired if you don't win this game, which puts a lot of pressure on him.
And okay, so to go to other, like, as far as coaching situations, right? The Chargers have been banged up all season. This game means nothing. They have clinched their playoff berth. And not only do you play your starters, but Williams gets banged up pretty bad and is now going into a playoff game at Jacksonville with a back contusion. Bosa, it's a toss-up on whether or not it made sense to activate him because he's missed a lot of the season. He could use the reps, but from what I understand too, like, he got banged up that game to some degree as well. Like, I just have to question the decision-making there. Like, this
stupid.
I think not. I don't know.
It becomes a philosophy of, do you save your players' health or do you keep the momentum rolling? And the momentum is very important. It really is. Sitting them for a whole game really can affect the mojo that you're playing with, the vibe that you're playing with as a team. Chemistry is super important in the playoffs. So I get why he would do that and why he would play them, at least for some of the game. It sucks that those guys got banged up. But I get where you're coming from.
I think the biggest thing, because I agree with you, and to me, it's like a case-by-case basis, right? Like, playing Hurts coming off of an injury made a lot of sense because I think he needs the reps. But like, this game means nothing. Does not affect their seeding, nothing. And they've been banged up all season. Not just one guy, just not 2 guys that could use the reps. They've been really badly hurt all season. With Allen, with Williams, with Bosa, with their offensive line, with their cornerbacks. I just don't know if you take that risk because of the fact that you have been hurt most of the season. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm not saying all the way one direction, guys need the reps, or all the way one direction, you should be resting your players. I think there's gray there. In this particular situation, I thought it was a dumb move.
Yeah, I can see why you and a lot of people say that. With that being said, look out for the Chargers in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, but also look out for
Sneaky,
Jacksonville.
sneaky. Yeah, I know those are 2 lookout teams, but the winner of that game is a dangerous matchup. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think both teams are playing really good football right now. Um, Rams, Seahawks. Obviously, as a Lions fan, this game
Heartbreaking,
hurt.
man.
This game
John,
hurt so
let me
bad.
just paint you a picture of how heartbreaking this was. So I got into the stadium. I watched the whole first half in a bar right out in Titletown, right outside of Lambeau. And we finished the third quarter. We start walking into the stadium. We get in the stadium, and it was, that last drive that Seattle was driving to try to win it in regulation. And so many Lions fans already in the stadium, a lot of blue in Lambeau Field. And obviously, Packers fans, a lot of them honestly were rooting for the Lions anyway, just for a better game, Sunday night football game. And they're on the big screen. So I walked down onto the field and we're seeing the players and stuff. And then on the big screen, they're broadcasting the game. Like it is the broadcast of the game. And the kick doinks. And the place erupted as if it was like our game.
Right.
And we just went nuts. And I made a TikTok about it. It was all fired up. And then within like 5 minutes, Baker does what he does, throws a pick. Seattle rips our heart out, which sucked. But it was so cool seeing that, and would have been so awesome watching the Rams win in that atmosphere.
Right.
And then it would have
and
amplified.
we'd be talking about now the Lions are playing the 49ers, would be playing the 49ers, and I wouldn't feel great about their odds, but we'd still be talking about Lions going to the playoffs right now. And that hurts to not be talking about. But I think that also keeps that team inspired and hungry and motivated for next year, knowing that, we call this game a game of inches. Like, we all know how tight the margins are for success in this game. And Detroit, was what, 5 one-score games away from not only having a winning season, but winning like 12 or 13 of their games this season. And that is not an understatement. So I think that this team has a lot to take away from that. And I think that this is going to keep them hungry at the end of the day. So, and also we get a higher draft pick. So I guess thanks for messing that up, Rams. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it sucks.
It really sucks. 49ers, they're not much to talk about. They, just blew out a team that
they did what they
really
did, man.
To play for.
They are the hottest team in football.
Yep. And now from there, we're just going to get into the game that we're probably going to talk about for quite a bit here, because not only was Mark there and got to experience that magic first person, but obviously this is a Detroit-based podcast. And obviously, I think even if you're not a Lions fan, this was a really, really special game, and also has a lot of implications for both the Packers and the Lions. The result of this game has a lot of implications for both the Packers and the Lions. So, Mark, I'll let you take it away here and just kind of describe your experience. Then we'll kind of, get into it, talk about some other stuff.
Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about with this game. I had an awesome trip. We were lucky to have one of my dad's a head football coach in high school, and one of his former players is high up in the Packers hospitality department, and was able to hook us up with a tour of the facility. He hosted us all weekend. He's responsible for a lot of the development of Titletown itself, the restaurants, bars, everything that you see in Titletown and experience, he has a role in and developing and managing. And so he gave us kind of an inside tour on all of it, and it was cool. Was able to see their facilities, a lot of legendary names, right? A lot of jerseys on the wall, just so much history in that stadium. And the best way I would describe the experience of Titletown and Green Bay and the people in general is like a college town. The feel, it doesn't feel like it's a professional sports team and how people cheer for them and care about them. It feels like it's a college town. And when you go to a college football game, I don't care where you go, any big school, SEC, Big Ten, those people would die for that school, man. They love it. And it's passed down through generations. I mean, John's a Michigan fan because his dad went there and has, his whole life he was, right? And John will probably pass that down to his kids, and it will just continue. And that's what it feels like in Green Bay. It just is a different special feel. The people there, for the most part, really nice people. A lot of Lions fans traveled there. I didn't really see any trash talk or fighting or anything like that. After the game, I was running my mouth a little bit. but a lot of Lions fans were. The funniest thing I think about the game itself. So we got our seats. It was right about like on the 35, 40-yard line. And we have some extra room because the people next to us on the edge of the row are not there. And so me, my brother, my dad, and one of our other friends are sitting there. And by the way, sitting, I mean standing. Everyone stood the entire game. Like there was not no one, 88,000 people or whatever it was, no one sitting the entire game. And then all of a sudden these two girls, good looking girls come up and they're like, these are our tickets. They came in like the middle of the, second quarter. And they come sit next to me, and our buddy who's standing next to us just turns and just goes, talk about a gimme, man. Just two good looking girls. I mean, what are the odds? You know what always happens to me, John, when I have like an open seat in public and I don't know who's going to be there? It's some like 300-pound dude that comes and sits next to me, and I have like no room to even move. And I'm like, dude, why couldn't this be like, a good looking girl or someone cool? And these two girls are there. And so at first I started talking to them. They're good looking girls and they're Packers fans, and they're obnoxious as hell. Okay. They're diehard
every
fans.
Packers fan I've met at a Packer game has been obnoxious.
Well, everyone around us was pretty cool. I was around a mix of Lions and Packers fans, and we were definitely getting along with everybody fine in our area.
You think they had a couple drinks, couple brews beforehand,
for sure,
showing up halfway through the second quarter? They got caught up.
They were totally hammered. And these two girls start talking trash, taking videos of us after every big time Packers. Yeah, she was posting her Snapchat, all this stuff. And so eventually, and another insider. So I guess her mom works for the Packers. I guess she's a waitress in Green Bay, serves Aaron Jones and Aaron Rodgers and AJ Dillon, I guess like once a week. So like she's actually connected to the Packers. So she has a reason to talk shit. Okay. And she's like, you should just root for the Packers. I mean, the Lions are playing for nothing. And I'm like, yeah, that's, whatever. Like I came here, to watch the Lions upset. Right. And at that point in the game, the Packers were in control of most of the game. Second half comes around. We go get some drinks. We come back. They come back even more drunk. They're still talking shit. And right after the long JMO touchdown gets called back, we didn't know it got called back yet, though. My buddy next to me and my brother Cole stand up and flex their Lions jerseys like the Superman opening their chest and just like in their face, dude. And we stand up on our bleachers, and the Packers fans behind us are like, you guys really should settle down talking to these, talking shit to these girls. I'm like, have you not heard them the whole game? Like, this is a fair trade here of what's going on, exchange of words. And then obviously on that last play where we convert to win the game, we started talking shit, and they actually left. They left after that play. There was still a few, over a minute left in the game, but they just walked away without saying a word. And just, so I guess, we weren't as obnoxious as they were. We were just fairly even, but it was that kind of environment.
There's a lot of satisfaction, right? And like, I really like Aaron Rodgers. I listen to him talk on Pat McAfee once a week. I think that the legacy, like sports media, really just enjoys hating on him when I really don't think he's that bad of a dude. But as a Lions fan, right, to hear him give this team zero respect all season, saying you don't lose to that team, and they're not a winning team. I think they're right at 500. All of these just snide remarks, all of the cockiness, just thinking business as usual. This is what we do. We beat the Lions when it matters. To see him just like have his heart ripped out and have to walk away into the tunnel after losing that game, hearing all the Lions fans and the team just erupt. Oh my God. Like, such amazing payoff. And I hope he thinks twice about talking shit to that team ever again, because like, wow, did all of those cocky comments and snide remarks really make you look silly, right? Because you can be a competitor and not go there, right? Like, that's possible. And he decided to go there every opportunity that he had to go there, and he got he got swept by this team. So pretty awesome. Kirby Joseph picking him off 3 times in a season, rookie safety. And, again, shout out to Brad Williams. He drafted Kirby Joseph because he felt like he had the ability to seek out a ball and get interceptions. And that's exactly what Kirby Joseph did this season. Awesome.
So, Hutchinson had another big game.
9.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries.
My dad sitting next to me was saying the same stuff. we didn't play Jameson Williams almost at all. We put him in. The first play that he puts him in, my brother goes, "Here we go, play action, JMO touchdown." Before the play even started, and the Lions fans behind us heard him, and they throw a flea flicker for a touchdown. Obviously, he got called back. We didn't know it at the time. We're going nuts, with the Lions fans behind us. Everyone's just silent around us. And then it gets called back. But it's like, it just becomes predictable when you put him in. What do you think you're putting him in for? He doesn't block
Right.
very well,
Right.
So it's like,
Kirby Joseph would have had 4 interceptions had that not been called back
oh, I
either.
know.
And you sent me a tweet, right? Like, what Lions team do we know that has a touchdown and an interception called back and still wins the game?
Still wins the game. I mean, that speaks like those are key moments in the game. I thought that the biggest moment in the game in terms of the Packers, and I didn't understand why LaFleur would do this, the 4th and 1, when you have a 3-0 lead, you have all the momentum. I'm serious, all the momentum in the world at that point. It was only a 3-0 lead, but
Right.
you just felt like the Packers were going to roll us. Like that's what it felt like, right? And everyone around us was thinking the same thing. 4th and 1, they go for it and do a jet handoff and get stuffed. And then that converts right into a Lions field goal like 2 plays later. I just don't know why you don't just punt it there and just pin us deep and make us do something, make us earn something. They gave us
Yeah.
3 points. They gave us life.
Especially since the
And
offense was stalling. Like it
yeah,
I
we
agree
didn't
that
look
they
good
felt
the
in
most of the
control.
first quarter. And then it's just like, why are you just
Right.
it just felt desperate for the Packers for no reason.
Yeah.
You
And
were controlling the
LaFleur doesn't
game.
generally make those decisions. And then like what was going on with that was it a punt or a field goal where you just whacked the ball out of the center's
Yeah,
hands?
so
That
I
was a
guess they were
15-yard
trying
penalty?
to I guess the reasoning behind it was they were gonna try to ice them, and the last time that they iced him, we still snapped it and kicked a field goal that didn't count, so he got, like, a practice kick, and he was trying to guarantee that that wouldn't happen.
But the timeout never happened, and therefore he just looked like a
Right,
jackass, just swatting. And
right.
then,
So,
um,
that was what I guess his
obviously
reasoning was.
Walker too pushing a trainer. What was the stadium like when that happened? Because that was
Uh,
crazy watching that on TV.
it was such a subtle push, like, a lot of people like, I didn't even see it live, and then they showed it on the screen after, and people were, kind of in an uproar about it, especially what happened like last week and how important the medical staff was in saving Damar Hamlin's life. To just disrespect someone who's trying to come and help an injured
Swift, you
player.
got armbarred in the face, by the way. That was a
Yeah, I mean,
dirty
it
ass
was
play as
completely
well.
uncalled
So
for. Deserved to get thrown out of the game for sure. And I just think a lot of the time, people beat up on players all the time, man. And as a former player, I would obviously never do something like that. But there's a lot of players that play with so much energy and passion and aggression, and it's very hard for them to turn that on and off. And he just probably didn't even realize what he had done. He probably didn't even realize who just nudged him. He just
yeah,
probably thought it was a player or something. I don't
yeah.
know. It looks way
He
worse than it
he
probably
left a
was.
very sincere apology on Twitter too, and look, he's a rookie with his whole career ahead of him, and he's a damn good
Yeah,
player.
it's
I mean, he made the same mistake twice, right? You
yeah,
pushed a Bills staff member too, and look, you're right. Emotions can run high. Really boneheaded decision, but he did own up for that, and you just gotta hope that he does better in
yeah.
the future because
It's
that's
hard for some of these.
unacceptable. But it's
Yeah,
I do also
totally
recognize
unacceptable.
like when
Yeah.
emotions are running high and stuff like that, you can't just make boneheaded decisions like that at times.
Yeah.
So
But, dude, it was an awesome game. It was an awesome experience. I'll say this, and I'll probably put out a ranking of here pretty soon on our social medias of places that I've either played in or gone to a game. And Lambeau Field is close with Madison and Wisconsin of best stadiums that I've been in.
yeah.
It's got the
Um,
same kind of feel. It's just like it's built upwards, and it's like there's just 80,000 people just down on you with noise, you
right.
know? And
Yeah,
it's
no, it seems like
which
I haven't seen a game there, but definitely like top of the bucket list to go see a game there because it seems like a magical place to be.
yeah,
I think
very
one of
cool
my
place.
favorite sporting events I ever attended actually was with you. If you remember when Michigan was like first starting to play hot under Harbaugh for the first time, we went down and watched him play against Northwestern.
I do.
Yeah, that was a good ass game. So yeah, pretty cool stuff, man. I just have so much optimism for the future of this team. I think that we look very attractive to free agents, and I think Brad Holmes is
For the
going to
first
manage
time in a
that
long
wisely.
time, right? First time
Yep,
in a long time.
yep.
I do like
I
that they're giving Goff his credit and saying, he's things can change, but he's pretty much our guy. He's kind of earned that right, and I like that. I like that they're just addressing it and saying that because I agree completely. I think Goff is our guy. moving forward. I think he did enough.
One comment that really stood out to me that Holmes made in his postseason interview today. He said it's a lot easier to get worse as a quarterback in the NFL than it is to get better as a quarterback in the NFL. And Goff has done nothing but get better since he's gotten here. And I do think that speaks volumes. I think he's been a leader. I think that he has really honed in on his craft. And I think that the reliability that provides for what he's surrounded by, which is an absolutely loaded offense, right? You see problems on defense. You see zero problems on offense. I think Holmes is going to manage this, situation, draft capital and free agency wise, very wisely, and just make sure that, defense holds its own and offense is just ready to go for another run. And hoping to God that we keep Ben Johnson.
The biggest factor for the Lions to do what they did this year, but even better next year, is Ben Johnson.
Yeah. Because he's only gotten one interview request so far, which is the Texans.
I know, but if he leaves,
we're going
to take a step back offensively. I don't care who we draft. I don't care who we hire to replace him. I think that he's one of the best OCs in football. I think he's earned that right. I think he was unbelievably good as a play caller this year. And he is so, so important to the reason why we were so successful and rattled off these wins and went on the streak and beat teams that you normally don't see the Lions beat. Our offense was our power this year. If we lose him, the confidence that I have for the Detroit Lions next year is going to be very different. And it's not about, not trying to bash Campbell or any of the guys that we have on the roster. It's just Ben Johnson is the reason we took that huge step. Campbell's a great leader and able to turn that around. His game management, I think he probably leaned on his coaches to help him out with that a little bit. Still has some issues with some of the stuff he does. He still struggles in some big moments.
He improved, though. I would say
he improved a little bit. He didn't. He cost us less games. I mean, there was some games he straight up cost us the game because of his lack of ability to manage the big moment. But Ben Johnson is, I think, who you have to give the most credit to in terms of coaching this year. Is why we stepped in that direction.
I'm very happy that there's only been one interview request for him so far, and Texans are interviewing everybody. I think they've requested to interview upwards of 8 guys. So I'm feeling okay about that. We'll see, right? There's going to be a lot of coaching vacancies in the coming weeks here. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, fingers crossed, because I agree with you that I still think this team will be in really good shape for next season. But I legitimately, especially looking at our schedule right now, I think we can win 13 games, 14 games next season. I really do. With Ben Johnson, I'm not as confident in that prediction. So
if he leaves, you're saying?
Yeah, without Ben Johnson, I'm not as confident. Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. I'm going to screen share one more thing, and then we're going to, kind of move on to playoff conversation. Just because, look, Mark and I had a conversation about this. This is the man that beat Barry Sanders' touchdown record. And he is the most open anime nerd that I have ever seen a professional athlete be.
I'm gonna let you know, this for my nerds back home. We Akatsuki'd out a little bit. Got the Akatsuki Red Cloud. First swag Kazakage. In Village of the D. The Akatsuki Crow, Robo, you know me.
Just want to go home and play Pokemon.
Go home and play Pokemon.
Yeah. Pokemon.
Yeah.
Don't do that. You can't disrespect Pokemon like that. Pokemon. You sound like old.
Itachi, my boy right there. And then once you see this line right there, that mean you banned from your clan. Yeah, I'm a rogue ninja.
Don't matter what team you on or anything, you can always appreciate somebody who loves anime.
This dude currently holds the Lions franchise touchdown record. And I just have to say, I love the fact that he is purely himself all the time. I really do. This dude is a grown man, a professional athlete, pushing 30 years old. And he is more nerdy about anime and comic books and video games than kids in high school are confident being. It's hilarious. And also I think part of the reason the Detroit Lions are so successful is because they encourage players to be themselves. And I'm really hoping he sticks around next year. It sounds like Holmes has already talked to him about getting something done that they're both happy with. So that had me cracking up. If you've been watching the Lions this season, he's been like that all season. And I think he just speaks from the heart. His post-game interview was very interesting too, going from crying about the loss of his great grandfather to like just switching it and becoming a hard ass and saying like, do not count us out. We're the Detroit Lions. I loved it personally. I think he's super motivational. He's a Dan Campbell guy through and through. It was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, he was a big part of the turnaround for sure in terms of the player leadership and the passion that these players played with every week. Takes a certain group of guys to follow a guy like Dan Campbell. There's a lot of players in the league that would be like, who is this tool, barking and talking about kneecaps. And there's a lot of players that be like, that's corny as hell, man. Like, whatever. Like, I'm just going to go do me. And there's a lot of players that we have on our roster that bought into that and that respected it. And I think that that's important to note because there's cultures that don't work with certain players and certain coaches. It doesn't mix. We see it all the time. And it seems like the players we have and the way Campbell wants to lead this team seems to be a fit.
I think the youth helps a lot, right? Because not to say that like these guys don't have egos, because I think to be a professional athlete, you definitely have to have some sort of ego. But like there is just a level of like humility and buy-in that goes with, being most of these guys on their rookie contracts and just having this hard ass motivator, great speaker, team guy. And he still treats them like adults. He treats them with a lot of respect, but he also just has, a certain vibe to him that you're right. At times comes off as corny. It's almost like he's a cartoon character, like just a cliche of like every football coach that you see.
Yeah.
But at the same time, man, like it's also an act to a degree, right? Where he acts like he's dumber than he actually is. And I kind of love the fact that he just like, he knows there's kind of a brand to keep up with it and he maintains it by any means necessary. And
I think he just also might be kind of dumb, John. I think he knows football, but I think like as a person, he's like, I mean, he played in the league for a long time. He's definitely taken some hits to the head. I think he's just a little bit of
this dude went on the Pat McAfee show and lied about being distracted about the wave when they ran a game-winning play against the Vikings. So he's at least partially self-aware about his personality, and I do think that's pretty freaking entertaining to say the least. We got playoffs to discuss, and I'm thinking the best way to do this is to kind of pick our winners for this week, and then also just say who would we like to see in the Super Bowl, right? And we'll go and kind of fill out our bracket. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok, YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Mark and I are both going to fill out our brackets and kind of see what we'd like to see. So if you want to see like a, more of a breakdown there, go and follow us and make sure that you're tuned into that. But right now, I just want to pick the winners for this first week and then say who we want to see in the Super Bowl. So we'll start in this top left corner here with Dallas, Tampa. It sounds like both of us are picking Tampa, right? Dak just hasn't looked good. We think Tampa's defense is going to hang. It's a home game for Tampa. They already beat him once this season. I think Tampa gets it done.
Matchup wise, both teams kind of, obviously losing last week. Both teams have had ups and downs throughout the season. I think Dallas has had more ups than Tampa. Like you said, Tampa hardly even deserves to be in the playoffs, it feels like. I agree with you. But like we said, man, they have Tom Brady, and they have a young defense that has some stud linebackers that run around and make plays. They're well coached. It's a home game, and they just seem to be getting healthy at the right time. Getting Tristan Wirfs back, as I said, is a big deal. It just feels like Tom Brady's gonna do something again this year. It just feels like he's gonna make a little bit of noise. And look out, Philly, the winner of this team. It's gonna be a tough matchup. I mean, because Dallas we've seen can compete with Philly, division game. But Tom Brady against Jalen Hurts, right? And a good defense against Jalen Hurts that has linebackers that can play both quarterback run and RPOs. It's all about matchups in the playoffs, dude. And in this matchup, I see Tampa getting it done.
I'm inclined to agree with you. Giants, Minnesota, on the note of matchups, right? I think the Giants have productive enough of an offense to tear up what has all season been one of the worst defenses in the league. Similar situation to the Lions in the first half of the season. Like the secondary can not pass protect. Their defensive line is not very good either. And Daniel Jones isn't the greatest quarterback in the world, but when he has time and he allows plays to develop, we've seen what he's been able to do this season. So it's tough. I think, however, that Minnesota's offense, as they've been doing all season, will kind of pull this really crummy defense through the mud and make it happen. And for that reason, I think that I'm going to go Vikings here to win this one.
Yeah, this is probably for me the toughest game to pick of the weekend. Because I think the Giants are more than capable of pulling this upset. It just feels like Minnesota's weathered the storm all year long and have had so many playoff feel games, and it's a home game, and Vikings fans are nuts. When I was in Green Bay, a lot of people, and more than just like in one setting, like everywhere that I went, and any Packers fan that I talked to, and the second I said Lions fan, they gave me some shit, but they're like, yeah, but you guys are nothing compared to Minnesota. We hate Minnesota fans. Like for some reason,
they're nuts. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just feel like a home game for Minnesota. They're ready for these games because they've done so many of them. And I still don't think the Giants are as good as people think that they are or that they look.
Yeah.
I
think we
still
both
there's
have
so many
maintained
holes.
that all season.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna go with Minnesota.
Cool. So we are lockstep so far, and I don't think that's going to change on this next matchup, San Fran versus Seattle. Look, hats off to what Pete Carroll's accomplished this season, squeaking into the playoffs. I think nobody, including us, would have predicted this offseason. But it stops at San Fran. Shanahan's just too good of a coach in the playoffs, and their team is significantly more complete than Seattle's. And I don't think their offense has very much productivity whatsoever against San Francisco's defense.
Yeah, you're welcome, Seattle fans. For get you in, beating them Packers, getting you in. But yeah, you're right. San Francisco will win this game. However, it will be closer than most people think. Pete Carroll always plays Kyle Shanahan close.
Divisional rival.
His defense is nowhere near prepared to stop the 49ers offense, but they'll do enough and cause enough issues. This game will be closer than people think. So I will pick the 49ers, but don't expect a blowout.
I expect a blowout, but we'll see what happens. It's NFL playoffs, so of course you can't expect any team to really put up a lot on another team. The parity is just crazy in this league. Jacksonville Chargers. This is probably my toughest game to pick. And I think I am actually going to go Jacksonville just because they've been the hotter team in the past 4 weeks. And I think that's dangerous. And I think the fact that they're hosting a playoff game is dangerous. And I respect the hell out of this Chargers team. And I respect the hell out of their talent. And I think that they're just getting started for being a really good team and potentially even a contender in the AFC in future years. But for whatever reason, this just feels like it should be Jacksonville's game to me.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I'm going to pick the Chargers. I think that the Chargers have a super roster. I think that they've been building and building and building to this time of year all year long. I think that they've known as coaches and as a team that if they're able to get in, that they're dangerous. I think that they believe that and know that. And I feel like they're kind of, a lot of guys were banged up and on and off with injuries. And I think that they were holding back a little bit because of that. And they were kind of coasting and just like, once we get in, it's full go. And I think you're going to see a full go Chargers team that's playing with, just a different purpose. And they're going to play their full potential. And I think they're going to beat the Chargers, or I'm sorry, they're going to beat the Jags pretty good. And I think it's going to be a very interesting second round matchup with Kansas City. That's all I'll say for now.
I agree with that on all fronts, except the fact that I think that for whatever reason, it just feels like the Jaguars are going to pull it off to me. I think the Chargers are going to fall short. But yeah, definitely a toss-up of a game. Baltimore, Cincy, I just don't think Baltimore's offense has shown that they can get it going all season. And for that reason, I think that Cincinnati will win this one. I think Baltimore's defense is going to keep it close, but I think that Cincinnati ultimately ends up pulling away.
Yeah, you're right. It's going to be closer than it was this week. But we're talking about Joe Burrow, man. Joe Cool. And I'm sorry, with or without Lamar Jackson, this Ravens team is not enough to take him down. So until I see otherwise, because the last time we saw Joe Burrow in the playoffs, he made a run to the Super Bowl. Until I see otherwise, I'm not going to pick against him in a game like this.
Yeah, I don't think you can count out Joe Cool in any situation, and especially not the first round of the playoffs against a divisional rival that they've kind of owned this season. And then we got Buffalo, Miami, and I think both of us feel pretty confident that Buffalo at Buffalo, with all the momentum and purpose in the world, is going to pull away with this one.
100%. Easiest pick of the weekend, in my opinion. There's no way in hell that Buffalo loses this game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then Super Bowl, who would you like to see? Personally, I think the most likely Super Bowl matchup is also the Super Bowl matchup that I want to see, and that is the 49ers versus the Buffalo Bills.
Okay. The Super Bowl matchup that I want to see would be the Bills and the Vikings.
Interesting.
That's what I would want to see. I like the Vikings for a couple different reasons. I like Adam Thielen, like Justin Jefferson, like what they're doing with like Kirk Cousins. And I just feel like that their story is crazy. And I like the coach. I like what they've done this year and have basically no one's given them the true credit they deserve all year long. That's what I would like to see. I think that'd be the coolest game. What I think is going to happen is either I'm going to say Buffalo, but it could. I'm going to pick either Buffalo or the Chargers to come out of the AFC. Probably Buffalo, and I'm going to take the 49ers.
Okay,
of what I actually think is going to happen.
Both of us are leaning towards a 49ers Buffalo Super Bowl.
Now, John, what's your second team? And so you have Buffalo, sure, and you have the 49ers, but what are your secondary?
I'd say
what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, I'd say KC and Philly would probably be my secondary matchup. I just don't think the Chargers or the Jaguars are going to be able to pull it off at KC at Arrowhead. So, and KC Buffalo is always a matchup for the ages. So if one of those come away with it, then I obviously already picked Buffalo, so that'd be my second matchup. And look, Philly's been playing good ball all year, and I am definitely on the hype train. I'm thinking that they are a contender of a team. They have weaknesses. They could be stopped. I actually think they don't match up well at all with San Francisco. So if that ends up being the NFC Championship matchup, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, that's probably the two secondary contenders that I'd think about. So
my secondary team in the NFC, just so obviously in the AFC it's Buffalo and then the Chargers, right, and then obviously it's San Francisco, and my secondary team is Tampa.
Interesting. I'm tired of Tom Brady. Look, I'll give him the Dallas win. I don't think they're going any further than that against any of the other teams, right? So that's where I'm at. Look, we're going to have a real exciting episode next week to cover all of these playoff matchups. And as we've kind of discussed, we've been really hitting it on the TikTok stuff and the shorts and all of that. So make sure you're following us on all the other platforms that are on the banner down below. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. We're trying to get up to 100 subscribers as quickly as possible. Yeah, man, it's the best time of the year. It's playoff NFL football. Can't complain.
This is the best time of the year. You can't this weekend. I mean, wild card weekend is just so damn fun. I mean, so many games. Everything means the world. And it just seems like these games are always good games.
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, the NFL's perfected their product, and I've said this so many times, but every single one of these playoff rounds are some of the craziest, most exciting football I've ever seen in my life.
Just look at how other sports. I mean, other sports are dead basically until the playoffs or the finals, right? I mean, MLB, NBA,
right. And even then, sports, 4 games. How do you create? The only way you can create crazy excitement around that is if it's a 3-3 matchup, right? And then you get, but this, it's like you lose, you're done, bud. It's over.
It's you don't get a second. There's no second chances. My dad talks about this all the time as a head coach. How football is the most unforgiving sport, and honestly one of the most unforgiving things that there is. Right? There's so many people that are passionate about it, especially when you play or when you coach, and everything is so fun and special, and it ends just like that, just on the snap of a finger, it ends. And that story, that team will never be again.
And
right?
You could argue close all the time, right? I mean, one that sticks out in my head, right? When we played Oak Park our senior year, right? We were 2 inches away from winning that game, basically. Just one stop away. And we weren't able to get it done. And like we cried about it like babies in the locker room after that game, because that loss hurt real bad because of the fact that it was so close. But you can't take that one back. And you see that all the time in football, literally all the time in football, where it comes down to one play, and that one play is decided by just the smallest little details.
It is literally, I mean, people joke and say it's a game of inches. It is literally a game of inches. There are so many games that are decided on one play, one catch, one interception, 1 yard, less than a yard. We've seen it happen.
Amon-Ra caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass. I mean, straight up. It was literally butt cheek.
Was he clenching?
I think he clenched butt cheek to catch that thing, which is like having a third hand. I mean, listen, he's a world champion lifter, and I'm assuming he's got some strong glutes.
Oh yeah, he's been hitting.
Going to put it out there,
and there you go.
People are going to be like, "That's pretty sus of you to say," but hey, I'm assuming he's got strong legs, dude. And it seemed to me like he clenched to catch that thing. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, that was a crazy, crazy catch.
One finger, two cheeks. It's all you need.
He had to go there, I guess.
That's all you need, man.
You really had to go there. I guess I'll conclude this by saying, hey, thanks for riding with us for our very first NFL season. We saw it through all 18 crazy weeks. It's been a really fun ride, and we cannot wait to cover the playoffs and all of the other insane things that are going to happen, through the playoffs, through the Super Bowl, and beyond into, I'm sure, what's going to be a very exciting offseason as well. So thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next week to cover the results of these playoff games.
Yeah, look out for these playoff games. They're going to be exciting. One thing I will say, appreciate, like John said, people that have listened, watched, engaged in anything on social media. We're going to continue to put more and more stuff out. We're going to get more guests on here, and we've had a lot of fun doing this, and it's just going to get better and better through the playoffs. And I have a lot of exciting stuff in the offseason coming too. So
absolutely tons of exciting stuff. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.